بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا اللهم اهد قلبي وسدد لساني واسلل سخيمة قلبي آمين يا رب العالمين. So we will quickly review the previous ayat that we did last week and then move on to today's ayat inshallah. So again, as we were talking, having a discussion over the ayat about talaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in great detail for us all of the scenarios. And as you're going to learn, even today's ayat that we'll do, every scenario is described, every situation is described, is explained, and it's ruling in detail. And this is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. You know, the person who learns the Quran, the one who genuinely and truly and sincerely learns the Quran, you realize that person, it is impossible for that person not to have love for their Rabb, right? Because this itself creates a love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has addressed everything that relates to a human being. You know, our spiritual life, our personal life, our matters between each, families and among ourselves, everything is addressed for us, for our ease in this dunya, and of course, for our betterment, for success in the hereafter. So inshallah, bismillah, the ayah 233 of Surah Al-Baqarah, which we did last week. So this ayah talks about the scenario, so the situation where a woman who is divorced but has a child, has a newborn from her ex-husband, meaning she had her talaq at the time of pregnancy, and basically when the talaq happened, it happened during that time, and this is the final talaq, meaning they have separated. And now when the man and the woman, they have separated, what is to be done in this situation? And there's a newborn involved, there's a child, there's a baby of the ex-husband. Okay. والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين. Divorced mothers will breastfeed their offspring for 2 whole years. Okay. Or for those who wish to complete the nursing of their child. So again, as we mentioned, the time period maximum that is put forth for the recommended for anyone woman who wish to breastfeed their children is 2 years. It is also mentioned other places like Surah Luqman. It's also mentioned that the mother is she nurses the child for a max of 2 years. And again, this is the had that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala limit they have put. So if the mother is breastfeeding, then وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقَهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And the child's father will provide reasonable maintenance and clothing for the mother during that period. So if the mother is breastfeeding, then the father will provide for not just for the child, but also for so of course the father is responsible for the child regardless. So when a talaq happens, like a final talaq, right? The two people are separated. The woman is no longer financially dependent on a man, and it's not his responsibility to take care of that woman anymore. But if that woman, and of course, like in every scenario, the man still is the father, and he has to provide for the children, right? Even if he is divorced. But in the case that if she is breastfeeding the child, then the man also has to provide for her. And what is the hikmah again? Why In a regular situation where a man and a woman had divorced, the man doesn't have to give anything to the woman after. But if she is breastfeeding the child, because that's his child, so he has to provide for her. What he has to provide for her, for her nutrition in her diet. رزقهن. So for example, if the any kind of risk that is involved in terms of when it comes to maintenance of the child. So if she has to feed the child, then all the nutritious and her food and everything he has to provide for her. وكسوتهن, and also her clothing. And again, we discussed this last week too, why clothing specifically is mentioned, because children, when they're babies especially, they soil the clothing of the mother. And many times mother has to, even with the diapers there, still there are, when the mothers have to change their clothing more than they would do on a regular basis. So hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically, he's specifically pointing this out for the mother during this period. And bil ma'ruf. Now, bil ma'ruf meaning whatever is good, whatever the person can afford. And the next part of the ayah, la tukallifu nafsin illa wus'aha. So there is no burden, there is no one will be charged more than they can bear. Meaning the father only has to provide how much he can bear. A mother only has to take whatever is necessary. Okay, so whatever is necessary, and to not exploit the other person. Okay? لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده. And no mother or father should be made to suffer for their child. Meaning, what does it mean that mother and father should not be made to suffer for the child? Meaning emotional blackmailing. Basically, the man, and the next part of the ayah also explains that the man cannot exploit the women, saying, oh, because she's the mother and she anyways has to feed, why should I give to her? Right? Because it's a maternal instinct anyways, to obviously, when a child is born, it's a maternal instinct to feed the child, to provide the child. And parents, especially mother, their love for the child is unconditional. There is no there is no she would not think twice before feeding her child, right? So but here Allah SWT is saying that you should not take advantage, a man should not take advantage of that. And similarly, on the other hand, the women should not exploit the man uh, on the basis of that, yes, he's the father, now he has to provide more than he should be providing. Right? I deserve this. I need to have this. I also need to have, for her, for example, something beyond the necessities, things that are luxury, like shopping and so on and so forth, right? Or taking money to use for other reasons. So this kind of exploitation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said against that. وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك. And the father's heirs are under the same obligation, meaning that if the father, let's say, two people have the two people have separated, and let's say the father has passed away, the father passes away, right? Let's say, in a scenario where a husband and a man and a woman are divorced, the woman was pregnant, and during the pregnancy the man passes away. Now who is supposed to take care of this rizquhunna wa kiswatuhunna? Who is supposed to take care on the waris, meaning the heirs of the child, of the father, meaning the grandfather, the uncle, which is father's brother. First would be the grandfather, the paternal grandfather, and then would be the uncles, and they have to provide for this woman until she is done weaning, meaning until she's done breastfeeding. And if, for example, both the man and the women, upon mashwara wa tashawurin, and they with mashwara, with consultation between among themselves, they mutually decide that they are not going to breastfeed the child. Mutual, again, this is important. When it comes to matters, even when two people are separated, they cannot make decisions for the child by themselves, right? So as long as both are healthy and sane, and they are available, they have to decide for the child together, even if they're separated, because a child, the right of the child is both the parents, the mother and the father. So when they decide, so even for example, when small things like breastfeeding is being should be decided here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that that should be decided with mashwara, with doing consultation among each other, and only both of them, there is no need for involvement of other people. Then what about the major things in life, like marriage and so on, right? So here, when they both, if they both decide, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا, what do they decide? They do not want to breastfeed the child together. This is if both sides decide with mutual consultation to wean a child, then there is no blame on them, meaning there is nothing wrong in that. وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ, and if you decide to have your children nursed by a wet nurse, okay, تسترضئوا أولادكم فلا جناح عليكم, and there is no blame. So even there's a wet nurse involved, meaning someone else is breastfeeding the child. Provided, what should you do? What is the thing? إذا سلمتم ما آتيتم بالمعروف. What do the mother and the father needs to do is now pay the wet nurse of that child. Okay, so if the mother is not breastfeeding and the child is being breastfed by a wet nurse, then the wet nurse needs to be compensated for it. Okay, and bil ma'ruf, with the right amount, not taking the haq of another person. And here the main thing, the main highlight of this is wattaqullah, fear of Allah. Have the consciousness of Allah. Know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, right? When, and especially these sensitive matters, right? When for example, things that are happening inside the houses, no public is involved in that, so it's very easy for people to trick each other, to take advantage of each other, to not pay someone, for to not compensate someone. So here Allah is saying, you can trick people, a person can try to trick people, and a person can try to trick among relationship and try to dodge their responsibility, but Allah is watching. And the one who is fearful of Allah, fearful, conscious of Allah and his punishment, that person will be very careful, right? وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. Allah is ever mindful, ever watchful, ever knowing, and seeing over all that you do. Meaning each of the ma'amalat, even when two people have separated, still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what should a person have? The person should have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so this is a really important thing, even when it comes to a woman who a scenario where two people have separated, but they have a child who is breastfeeding. Okay, now the next scenario, the I number 234, which again, which we did last week as well. Then what happens at the wafat, or the death of the husband, a widow, right? So وَالَّذِينَ يَتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ, though of the as of those of you who die and leave widows behind, meaning the men, okay, تَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا, so what should they do? يتربصن بأنفسهن أربعة أشهر وعشرة, and let them observe a waiting period, meaning their iddah of 4 months and 10 days. Okay, so the iddah period of 4 months and 10 days is for a woman whose husband has passed away. And again, what is the iddah? Iddah is a period where a woman cannot get married, and in that period. Okay, so in that period she cannot get married. And so, and again, we discussed last week too, what is the hikmah, what is the reason behind a longer iddah period for a woman whose husband has passed away. The reason for this longevity or this length is because of the shock and the trauma that comes when a person's husband passes away. And this is the reason. For example, talaq, of course, is also, when a husband gives talaq to the wife, that itself is also, it is emotionally very traumatic. But and the iddah period for it is three cycles, three menstrual cycles. But when a husband passes away, that's even more shocking, right? That is very, 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 it's a time of sorrow for the woman. And it's a time of mourning for the woman. In a sense, she's grieving. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving that time, that time phrase for grieving, to allow the women to settle down, so that if, during this time, if imagine if someone sends a proposal, the woman is not in a state to decide at this point. She's in an emotional state. And there also, other than the emotional factor, there may be a lot of other things and other logistics she needs to take care of, now that the husband has passed away. For example, his finances and matters related to inheritance and things like that. So all of these things, hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this iddah period. And of course, that doesn't mean that the grief goes away when the iddah has passed away, but at least gives a woman a breather, that at least no one is approaching her, proposing her for marriage during this time. And during the iddah period, we discussed about a woman whose husband has passed away. So what are the things that she can do? So she should stay in her she's allowed to stay in her husband's house for that iddah period of 4 months and 10 days, and no one can ask her to leave, right? The in-laws cannot ask her to leave the house, because that's the house where she spent the time with her husband. Her belongings are there, and a lot of memories involved, right? She could continue to stay even after the iddah period, but during the iddah period, no one can ask her to leave. Okay, your husband had passed away, you need to go. No. So she should stay in that place. And then uh she is uh she's not to leave for any unnecessary reason. Yeah, there are certain reasons for which she can leave the house. It's permissible. For example, things of necessity, like there is no one to pick and drop the kids, there's no one to do groceries, for example. There, matters related to bank or going to the doctor and visiting. So for necessity, she's allowed to leave the house. Okay, and even in terms of her zina, like in terms of beautification, that should be avoided, because again, who does a woman beautify herself? Of course, like she has to maintain the regular, her hygiene and all that. In fact, in the times of Jahiliyyah, people used to, in the times of ignorance, people used to torture the woman whose husband had passed away. And in fact, not let her, for the disbelievers would make the woman not have her cleanse herself for a year. Her iddah period used to be a year, but Islam is not saying that. Of course, she has to maintain her hygiene, her cleanliness, her, she's to cleanse herself, but not over beautify herself. Because who does a woman or beautify her of herself for? And the zina is for her husband, right? So here in this period, she's to observe that as well. And if even in terms of working, she can work as if she has no other means of income, she's allowed to work, as long as of course she maintains the standard, she maintains the boundaries that Allah. And in fact, any woman in any situation, when she's outside working, she anyways has to maintain the boundaries when it comes to the opposite gender. Okay, and then what is the other scenario we mentioned is also if a student, if the woman who's on her iddah and she's also a student, and she's not to miss her exams or things like that for that reason, so she's allowed to. And this is again the upon based on the consensus of scholars, that in the iddah period that her husband passed away, she's allowed to go take her exams and things like that. Or if she teaches, then she's allowed to do that, because the students who are under her care should not suffer in that. So anything of necessity is allowed. And again, all of these are a case to case basis. So if anyone has a particular situation, they should definitely seek out and personally speak to the scholar in the community or an imam in the community and discuss their specific matter. But these are just a general legislations for everyone. Okay. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا بَلَغْنَا أَجَلَهُنَّ, and when they have reached the end of this period, meaning their iddah, فلا جناح عليكم فيما فعلن في أنفسهن بالمعروف, then you are not accountable for what they decide for themselves in a reasonable manner. What does this mean? So meaning that here you are not accountable, this is referring to her family, her mahram, her father, her brother, meaning she can decide for herself. What she can decide for herself? Meaning if she wants to marry someone else after her idda period has finished. Okay, so here a woman who's to marry and her if she wishes to marry the second time, she can do so, and she doesn't necessarily need the permission as such of her relatives, because she's mature at this time and she's more experienced compared to a single woman. Okay, of course, if she needs advice and they should advise her and help her, but they should not force anything upon her. Okay, force her to do anything or force her not to do anything. And even if she decides for herself not to marry someone after her husband has passed away, even that is fine. Right? Wallahu bima ta'maluna khabir. Allah is all aware of what you do. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing out two things for the woman. Two things are being established. The iddah of a woman, of a widow whose husband has passed away, and the independence of a woman to take her own decision after the situation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the freedom, then there is no human being. The word of the qawl of Allah is not above any other person's words, right? So when Allah has given the freedom for the woman to decide what she wants to do, what she thinks in her situation is better, whether to go for another proposal, accept another proposal, or to not marry, maybe she at this point when children or whatever the reason is, then it is for her to decide. Okay. And number 235. ولا جناح عليكم فيما أردتم به من خطبة النساء, and there is no blame on you for subtly showing interest in divorced or widow women. Okay, so here this is referring to the men around the woman. Okay, so for example, this situation is when the men around, there's a situation where the woman is widowed or she's divorced and she's in her idda. So what this is for the men around who wish to marry her. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if this wish comes in the heart of a man, that he wishes to marry a woman after her idda is over, there is no harm in that, except he cannot formally propose her during her idda. Okay, he can subtly hint her, meaning, for example, send just send like a word through someone that this person wishes to marry. But we will continue the ayah, but make no promises here during the idda period. Okay, alim allahu annakum satadhkurunahunna ستذكرونهن ولكن لا توعدهن سرا. So Allah knows that you are considering them, you have intention in the heart, and you may be considering, and there's no harm in that, to have that wish to marry so again this is a big important thing here that is being addressed, marrying women that are divorced or widows, right? So this was very common in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and during the time of the Sahabas, and it was nothing to be looked down on. It doesn't make and we know about our mothers, our believers. Many of them were either widows or divorced, or so and so forth. The Prophet married them. So again, there is a big cultural taboo when it comes to that. And this, again, the main thing to keep in mind is that the word of Allah is, and the laws of Allah is greater than whatever any human or any culture. And there are good parts of the culture, and then there are parts of the culture that are that cause disturbance in the society. And some of these are related to marriage, especially, is that there is no taboo when a woman is divorced, or when she is widowed, and there is no harm in, there is nothing wrong in marrying such a woman. Okay, and but Allah is saying, during the time of iddah, when she's in her iddah period, do not do any wa'ada, meaning do not make any secret promise to them. Okay, and taqulu qawlan ma'rufan, and only convey this in a good, appropriate way. Okay, so, and وَلَا تَعْزِمُوا عُقْدَةَ النِّكَاحِ, and do not commit to the bond of marriage until the waiting period expires. Meaning, there is no nikah in the time of iddah, and there is no proposals also. Only slightly and subtly man can hint that he wishes. Why the wa'ada? Why no promises should be made? Because again, what if, for example, a man makes a promise to a woman that he's going to marry her after iddah period comes to an end, and by the time the iddah period comes to an end, the man changes his mind. Now that is again another trauma or grief for the woman. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this is not right. This should not be done. And only promises, and a definite thing, a definite thing means a proposal. That should only be done after the iddah period is over. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ, and know that Allah is aware of what is in the hearts. فَاحْذُرُوهُ, and so beware of Him. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ حَلِيمٌ, and Allah is all forgiving and all forbearing, most forbearing. Okay, so be careful here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, be careful of all the wishes that come into a person's heart too, and be careful of what a person voices. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, so you have to beware. So the only way a person can control themselves and their emotions is when they have and do not act out, because every thought that it's not sometimes we don't have control on our thoughts, and every thought cannot be acted out, right? So here, imagine if a person started acting on an each and every thought, right? That's what a person does when they don't have any iman. Lack of iman is when people are behaving uh outrageous behavior. That only happens when a person has no iman, right? Then they act on all of their desires. Whatever comes in the mind, they do it because there is no fear of Allah. So here Allah subhanahu is saying that a person should be know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of every feeling and everything, and there are some feelings that are natural that are to come, but there is a way to channel them. And this is our deen. Our deen teaches us how to channel emotions in a correct manner, because it's only natural for human beings to develop certain emotions. So Allah subhanahu teaches us through the Quran, again through the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, how to channel certain emotions, how to control them, how to get rid of certain emotions, and how to foster better emotions, and the way we should be acting, right? So the next ayah, that um so ayah number 236. Okay, so the next ayah talks about, so this is the next scenario. Okay, next situation is this scenario where a woman is divorced, but her, like, their nikah happened between two people, the man and the woman, but and she is giving talaq before the marriage were consummated. Basically, in the uh, South Asian culture, something called as rukhsati, right? Where basically after the nikah, the man and the woman move in together and they have relation, right? So here, and so that's the consummation of marriage, right? And here, a lot this scenario is when they have not moved in, but nikah happened. Okay, so first scenario is that la junaha alaykum, and there is no blame if you in talaqtumun nisaa, if you divorced women, okay, and ma lam tamassuhunna, you did not touch them, okay, there was no physical relation, aw tafridu lahunna, and no dowry was settled. So no, situation number one, okay, so these are all different scenarios. Number one situation is that divorced, nikah happened, okay, and there was no mahar decided. Before the mahar was decided, talaq happened. Okay, the man gave talaq. Okay, what do we learn firstly from this? Okay, that it is not uh, impermissible to give uh, talaq even before the woman moves in. Okay, there is, yes, it is more, it can be emotionally hurtful, morally hurtful, but in legality, it is not a punishable act. Okay, it is not punishable in terms of Islamic law, that a man can give talaq to a woman even when she has not moved in, okay, and they have had not had any physical relation. Okay, so an important thing is that people should uh sometimes such situation occur, like, there is nikah between two people and the man has changed his mind, and of course people should advise and stuff, but people should not be forceful just for the matter of, izzat. What will the society say? Now nikah is done, and no, you have to take her, you have to take, and may perhaps there is hikmah, and it's better that they separate. Imagine this is a she forcefully moves in, and it creates even more problems and more emotional distress for her later on. So the family members should not be, yes, of course there should be a mediator, there should be dialogue, there should be advising done, but again, all of these things, and as we're learning these ayat, a lot of as we're learning these ayat, a lot of the cultural things need to change, right? A lot of the cultural things about what will which are very considered weird and weird and unacceptable, and people, because of their respect or in the society, in the family, they do certain things. One should, this is why learning the deen is so important, because it opens up the mind, right? So in this scenario, the meher is not decided and the man gives talaq. What should you do in this situation? Sorry, just a minute. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So in this situation, uh, what should he do now? He needs to compensate for the talaq that he's given. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَتِّعُهُنَّ, so he should give mata, a compensation, a suitable compensation. على موسع قدره وعلى المقتر قدره, and the rich according to his means and the poor according to his means, meaning the mahar is given. Now if the mahar is not decided and talaq happens and the both of them do not move in, then in this scenario the mahar can be given based on a person's demands, whatever means he has, according to whatever means he has. So, for example, if someone is rich, the man is rich, he can give based on that. If he can afford to give her some property, he can. If he, can give her a vehicle, he can. If he is unable to, then even some amount, some small amount, or clothing or something, but something should be given. Okay, and this is a compensation for the time and the emotions and the things that were involved when it comes to the woman. Okay, so here is basically protection of the rights of the woman, right? A man cannot just and this mata has to be bil ma'roof, okay, according a reasonable compensation. Okay, haqqan ala al-muhsinin, this is obligatory on those who do good, those who do ihsan. Okay, so in this case, the woman can accept the mahar, whatever the mahar the man gives. Okay, and whatever is decided, whatever he decide based on his means. Okay, and again, what happens culturally when such happens that a nikah is done, and now there was no rukhsati, there was no people did not they do not start living together, and now there was a talaq. What do the family members do? They even return the previous gifts, forget about taking the mahar, right? And also matti'uhunna, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that compensate them, meaning here who gets the money or who gets the compensation? The woman. Sometimes also happens that the relatives of the woman take that, the father or the brother or so on and so forth. So the woman has the right to take this. Okay, and the woman has to and she and if she wants to forgive it, she can do that as well. If she doesn't want it, she can also communicate that to the man. But on the man, it becomes, when we're using the word for mahar, if you there's no the word mahar is not mentioned. Okay, the word tafridu, fard, so meaning that it has to be given. And also another thing that is mentioned here, which is not mentioned here, the man, what happens in our cultures, the women is the one who is giving the women's side are the one who is giving the dowry, right? But on in Islam, there is nothing from the women's side. It is only from the man's side, and mahar is a fard. Okay, so that should be given. And if the family members are the ones of the women that are not considering what she wants, then she should convey to them. Because sometimes what happens is that women is fearful, and the women are fearful what will happen, how would the father, the brother, the mother, how would they react. Okay, and in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ayadilu huwa aqrabu littaqwa." Even do justice, be fair, even to your family members, because that is closer to taqwa. So one should maintain justice, do justice to their own selves too, even if it goes against one's family, should convey in a proper manner. If she's being compensated by the man, and if she's accepting the compensation and the man should do it, then she should take it, and there is nothing wrong in that. But of course, when you see the culture, it's completely opposite. So instead of even taking, people start returning back things that have been given before. The only time a woman has to return is her mahar, when she takes khula, because she buys her khula. Basically, when she divorces the man. Divorces, you wouldn't say she divorces, but she gets a khula. Okay, she comes out of the marriage. That's the only time she has to give back the mahar. Other than that, she doesn't have to give anything back. Okay, so here, the next ayah talks about the other scenario where two people have nikah. They had their nikah, mahar got decided. So in the previous ayah, mahar was not decided. Here, the mahar is decided, and then there is talaq. But again, in both scenarios, they did not move in, and there was no, consummation of marriage and physical relation. Okay, so وَإِن طَلَقْتُمُوهُنَّ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن تَمَسُّهُنَّ, and if you divorce them before consummating, meaning having physical intimate relation in the marriage, وَقَدْ فَرَضْتُمْ لَهُنَّ فَرِيضَةً, but after deciding on the dowry, on the mahar, meaning the mahar was decided. So if the mahar was decided, then what should the man do? فَنِصْفُ مَا فَرَضْتُمْ, then he should pay half of the mahar. Okay, إِلَّا أَن يَعْفُونَ, unless the wife graciously waives it, meaning she doesn't want it. So, for example, here the scenario is that, let's say, two people had their nikah and the mahar was, let's say, $2,000. Okay, and now and that is decided. Now, after the mahar is decided, the man gives talaq. Then what he has to do, even if he gives her talaq, he has to pay her half of the amount, which is $1,000, unless the woman says it's okay, I'm not moving in with you, we haven't moved in together, it's okay, I'll let go. But if she doesn't, then the man has to pay it, unless the wife graciously waives it. Okay, or أو يعفو الذي بيده, or the husband graciously pays in full, meaning the husband says, you know what, it's okay, I'm going to give you all of the amount. Okay, so here either the woman can show, be generous, or the man can be generous. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say is that وَأَن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى, graciousness is closer to righteousness, meaning both of them showing the graciousness. Okay, Islam makes us people of those, Islam makes us people who give. Okay, especially when things are sour, when things are bad, between or things are going not the way we want. Everyone wants to give gifts and things when things are good, right? What happens in times of marriages, people give lots of gifts and in the state of happiness. But when the times of difficulty and then things are sour, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give, be gracious. Okay, do not be of those who only give when they're happy and when two people are close. Also give when people are separating. Okay, even if, a lot of times we also give because we could get a benefit. Sometimes, many times people say that we are giving for the sake of Allah, and they're giving gifts and stuff and all that. And it's not only for the sake of Allah, it's also because it's making the person happy too. Not only sometimes it's for the sake of Allah, people only also giving gifts, especially in the times of marriages and stuff, because it's also makes them feel good, makes them feel grander, makes them look good in front of people as well. So all of these things. But when things go the other way, when things go sour, when and you're no longer getting any benefit out of another person, right? When two people are separating, they're going their ways. So there's no benefit that a people, if husband gives to the wife, or wife is there for the husband, right? And the she has her best behavior on and everything. It's for the longevity of the marriage, right? To preserve the marriage, to have a good relation. But what if two people are departing, two people are separating? So there's no benefit involved, right? But even when there is no benefit involved, Allah is saying that give. Okay, وَتَعْفُوا, okay, give, be gracious, because that is closer to taqwa. Okay, this giving when you're upset from someone and you want to be away from someone, or someone wants to someone and wants someone to be away from you, this is ihsan, this is ihsan, this is next level. That means the person is, why is it closer to taqwa? What does it mean closer to taqwa? Meaning that here the person is only and only doing for the sake of Allah. It's actually a way we all can judge ourselves. This is a parameter to judge ourselves. when things are no longer good between two people. It could be any person, not just in this particular scenario. And then you do something for another person when they have done harm to you, or they haven't been, and you no longer get any benefit. And then you're doing it, you can only do it for the sake of Allah. That shows that the person has the taqwa. That shows that the person has iman. Okay, so when we look at this word here, ta'fu, what does it show? For example, so in this scenario, right, general scenario is that the mahar is decided, as we took a example, $2,000, and the man has to pay half. What is the graciousness a woman can show? It's okay, you don't have to pay me. And what is the graciousness man can show? It's okay, I'll pay in full. I don't have to pay the half. So Allah is saying, whoever does that, it's better in the sight of Allah. You get more reward. So imagine, even when two people are separating and departing, they're doing that, and there is good deeds they're earning along this way. In such situations, people think of these situations as negative and something that brings a lot of negativity and bad name and shame. So many things are associated with these situations. Firstly, Islam came to remove all of these taboos and shame and this and that related to these affairs. These are natural things among human beings. Okay, firstly that. And not only that, Allah subhanahu, there's another level to it. A person can gain reward even through such difficult situations. A person can gain the reward of Allah. Okay, and what is one way to let go of negativity in the heart? Wala tansawul fadla bainakum. Do not forget kindness among yourself, meaning do not forget the favor of the other person. That is the only way that a person can let go, when they remember the good that the person has done. For example, as in our language we say rishta. There was nikah, and happened, and now there is separation. Now the man the woman's family was goes like, yeah, I knew he was going to be bad from the day he stepped into my house. And the man's family goes like, yeah, they never welcomed us, this and that. So there's a lot of negativity, even though this is not even real, this is not even situation. Think about the favor. Think about, like, when the woman's family invited to the house, all the things they did, all the things they presented, all the food they prepared, all the gifts that they gave, all of these things. Or and same for the man, all the gifts that he brought, or are he respected and stuff. So do not forget the other person's favor. That will help a person to cleanse the heart. Okay, and this is in this is in this situation, but this can be applied to any situation. That the only way to cleanse a person's heart, because with the negativity against another person, is to remember any good that they did, right? Because any good, any favor at any moment, even a smile that they presented, to remember that. Okay, and whenever the heart feels heavy with negativity, they remember anything good done, the fadl bainakum, all the kindness that a person. Because what happens end of the day is, when a person thinks of the negative, what does the negative do? When you see another person and all it brings is negative feelings in the heart, what does it do? What does it lead you to? It doesn't do anything to them. It's only harming us in the long run. It leads to depression. It's a waste of time. And the person who is angry and who's bitter, they cannot even enjoy the blessings in the moment, right? If the past is gone, and you see that person again, remember, imagine two people see each other in public, or the two families come again in front of each other, and now they have become enemies. There's no point, right? A relationship did not work. That happened. So deal with each other gracefully. And many a times it will happen is that maybe the other person will not behave gracefully. The other person will not behave in a dignified manner. Okay, but that is the whole point of taqwa, is when you're doing it for the sake of Allah. It's not always going to be, it's good to behave good when others are behaving good. The real test comes is when the other person is behaving negatively or giving really negative vibes or rude vibes, and you present a graceful and a dignified behavior. Okay, so and the way to do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, is not to forget any kindness, any kind of kindness that a person has done. Okay, so inna Allah bima ta'maluna basir, and Allah is all seeing of what you do. Who are you doing all of this for? Okay, so but when, and sometimes it's very, very difficult, right? Of course, these are emotional pains, and these are heartaches and things of the matters of the heart and things like that. But the only way a person can let go is for the sake of Allah, right? And again, main important thing is that the believer's life is a life of purpose. Like we all of us have a purpose in this world, and the purpose of our life is not marriage only, right? That's a part of it's a sunnah. And things the marriage can really flourish a person's life, and having a partner who also is on deen can really help a person to attain the pleasure of Allah, right? But on the other hand, when things come to an end, it's not the end of the world, right? But culturally and things like that, it is presented in such a way that even if when a woman wants to forget or a man wants to forget, the family will not make them let them forget, or for the family will not let them live in peace. So again, all in all, what we learn from this is that it is very important to equip oneself with the knowledge of the Quran, right? The Quran is there to open the minds. The Quran is there to debunk, to remove anything that is culturally there that makes life more difficult. If you learn these ayat, the one thing for me, which we stand specially, is the ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put, right? The ease in nikah, the ease in the matters of even in the matters of talaq, and the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it's there, right? And all of these negativity and the negative emotions and being stuck up, and sometimes what happens is relationships, nikah, there is talaq, and it happens between close family relatives, like so and so's daughter is married to their brother's son, right? Like a woman's daughter is married to her brother's son. That's a close relation. Now they break. Now there's a breaking in the blood relation. So this is not what our deen teaches, right? Yes, there is this happened, but behave in a dignified matter. Do not sever the relationship, and the way to not sever is the relationship is to be giving. When you are giving, when you have a good behavior, when you give to others, then definitely, even when the other person has a negative behavior or rude behavior, even that will become positive, because they know that you're doing this out of compassion. You're not getting any benefit out of it. You're not getting, and even if two people have separated and the families are still cordial with each other, right? Maybe they were family friends, maybe they were neighbors or whatever, but they still meet each other in a dignified manner. Who are they meeting for? They're meeting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, right, we're reminded of the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, that the people who are under the shade, seven people who are under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of that category on the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, when there is no shade, when the heat is cannot imagine, the sun is so close, right? It is, people are fearful, and they're sweating, and it's a state of fear, right? When we're waiting for a person's result, and those people will be shaded. One category is those who meet for the sake of Allah and who depart for the sake of Allah. Meaning there is no disobedience to Allah. There's no hurting of people. There is no disgracing of people. There is no damaging reputation of another person. Okay, and we should become of the givers. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? Even the man can give more, or the woman can let go. So it's all about giving, being a nature of giving. And as since we're on the topic of giving, and to give what we love, right? So here, also would like to mention that we're raising funds for the people of Bangladesh, those affected by floods. And these funds will be given to Human Concern International, HCI, and they will be providing relief kits for the millions of people that have been affected by the floods in Bangladesh. So we as believer need to be giver in any situation and take out sadaqah. Sadaqah makes the matters of brings ease into in affairs. Sometimes there's a hurdle, there's a difficulty, things are not happening the way we want. When a person gives sadaqah, the sadaqah removes the sadaqah of a person stands between the calamity, any difficulty that is to approach. So you can transfer any amount, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at the amount, He looks at the niyat, the intention behind that. So you can give that to info@alfatinstitute.com. Put your share towards supporting those in need in and believers are like a body, right? So any person hurting in the world, any believer hurting in the world, okay, it is as if we are hurting. Okay, so put your share, inshallah bismillah, towards it. Another announcement, one of the sisters who attends our halaqat, and she's part of our halaqat, and she's very active. Her grandmother has passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. So I request everyone to make dua for her, the maghfirah of her grandmother. And it's her nani, maternal grandmother. So she's passed away. So make dua for her maghfirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate her ranks, grant her gentle firdaus, and make her widen her grave for her, and make the sister sadaqah jariyah for her grandmother. Right? All of us have to depart from this world one day, and we don't know when is our time written, when that day is, when that moment is. So use this moment now to make dua for the sister's grandmother, and also use this moment to give. Be of the givers in relationship to the people in from your be of the givers, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, or whether it's through one's money from the risk. So inshallah bismillah, kindly, so please put your share into this cause and support the people that are affected, inshallah bismillah. Yes, so we will come to the end of our class for today. And if anyone would like to, so our regular students, if I request them to unmute and share their reflections from today's class.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's really nice to see how like beautiful like Islam is, like when we learn about it, and how like even in a situation like talaq, like it's not necessarily like like a nice position to be in, and like even then Allah still wants us to like be giving to like the other person and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, very good. Anyone else would like to share? Isha, Yusra.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, so you were mentioning that how like when we're when like someone is doing bad, then we should try to, like, when someone is doing something negative, then we should try to think of the positive things they have done to like allow us to think good of them. And I think this can also be related to how, like, sometimes when we're in a calamity, or like sometimes when we're feeling like we're being really tested or something's not going right, then something that like we should try to do is think of all the blessings that we have and all the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and that allows us to realize that the calamity that we're in, either like it's not that big, or like we will get through it one day, inshallah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that fosters shukr basically, right? When you do shukr of Allah, right? That is the state of a believer, right? When they get blessings, they are grateful to Allah. And when they are in a difficult situation, then they're patient. So in both of these situations, a person is positive, right? The positivity can only be fostered when one has positive thinking about, right? When remembers the fadl of Allah, the blessing that Allah blesses a person with, and the favors of other people, right? It's very common to remember all the favors we do on people, but it's hard for us to remember the things that other people have done. So remember the kindness, and especially in our relationship, spousal relationship, parents and children, siblings, especially at home, it's very important to remember these, because these things can get lost sometimes. So we should show our gratitude. In fact, take this moment to show gratitude to the parents, to the children, to our siblings, to our spouses, for all they do, and not think of all the things that they don't do, right? So inshallah bismillah, also we will be having our workshop in next month, and we will be sharing more details for it. We had one workshop in the month of Ramadan, before the month of Ramadan, sorry, before the Ramadan workshop, and similarly we'll be having another educational workshop for people of all ages, the children, and the sisters and the brothers, the adults and young ones. So we will be sharing, and we would like everyone to attend this educational workshop, inshallah. We'll be having perhaps end of October. We will share the date, we will share the details, the topic and the location, etc. Okay, jazakumullah khairan to everyone who has joined, and inshallah bismillah, we'll see you next week. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.